Okay, hello, I'm Namisile Pamela Ngubane, and this is the Entity Dynamics podcast. This is part 3 of talking about a culture of thinking about what it is that we worship and acknowledging that what we worship is what we become. Because we have this idea that God is more obsessed with what we do than what we are inside, right? And yet the scriptures say that God is interested in the heart. That's why he said King David is a man after his own heart, because he had the heart that God liked. So when he committed murder and adultery to satisfy his own egocentric desires, God was able to forgive him and say, okay, yeah, you messed up, you're a human being, but I know that inside you, your heart is a pure one. You know what I'm saying? And yet now, today, the institutions that claim to represent the same God and his prophets and his Messiah will tell you that they will treat people who are struggling with vices like outcasts, right? Like, not all of them, but there is a definite culture of people feeling extremely judged in religious institutions, feeling like they are not good enough because they are not pure and they're not holy. They don't feel at home. They feel like an outcast because they're not appearing on the surface to be what is holy and pure. And yet Christ said to the Pharisees, who were the most holy and pure people around, that prostitutes and tax collectors will enter heaven before you. Because Christ was judging by the heart. And it also says in the book of Isaiah that the Messiah, he will not judge by appearances. And it says Christ, he knew people's hearts. So he was saying to the Pharisees, you guys think you're so holy, but I'm telling you, there's more holiness found in some of these prostitutes and tax collectors that I hang out with. Because he, as the Son of God, directly connected, he said, me and the Father are one. He was saying him and the Creator are one because he was directly connected. That's why he could speak the truth. That's why he was the truth. As he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Because he could see that these Pharisees are not living according to what God, who is spirit, who wants people to worship him in spirit and in truth, is looking for. If you look at King David, when the Ark of the Covenant was being brought into Jerusalem, he was dancing in front of the ark, praising God. He became so totally caught up in the bliss of being connected to his creator that he even took off his robe and was just dancing bare-chested, and people were like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? He's not being kingly. But he knew that his identity has nothing to do with his external position and what he's wearing and the position he holds in society. He knew that his identity was completely linked to his creator. And that's why he behaved like that, And so Christ said, God is looking for those who will worship him in spirit and in truth. He's not looking for people who go to the temple every single holy day and do the burning of the incense and sacrifice this and do that and that and that. He's not interested in that. Yes, okay, sharp, do it, obviously, as a way of connecting to God and showing your devotion. But ultimately, that's not the point. The point is, what is your soul talking about? What is your spirit saying? Are you being honest with yourself? Because if God is the searcher of hearts and he can cut between bone and marrow and he can discern everything that's going on in us, then who do you think you're kidding? Who do you think you're kidding? If you, in your heart, harbor hatred towards your fellow human beings, you have a worldview that you blame on God that says that you are better than this other person because of A, B, C, D, externalities. Who do you think you're kidding? God knows what's going on in your heart. He knows what's going on in the heart of that other person. So this is what I'm saying. What kind of a worldview do you have? When you can think like that, and what are you going to behave like based on that worldview? Chances are you're going to turn a blind eye to women being abused by their husbands, because as far as you're concerned, God hates divorce. Children being abused by their parents, because as far as you're concerned, God says you must honor your mother and father, even though Paul said don't be harsh on your kids. And also it says in other parts of the Old Testament, don't be harsh on your kids. But your ego is telling you that, no, my kids must just obey me. And it's all about me. So these institutions that we're dealing with, they will pick and choose. It's true. I mean, for the longest time, the Roman Catholic Church did not allow people to read the Bible. You would actually be like imprisoned and killed if you read the Bible for yourself. And then Martin Luther was like, this is nonsense. And then in Germany, they made the press, the Gutenberg press, where the first thing that they printed was the Bible so that people could read it for themselves. And by Martin Luther reading the Bible for himself, not just being told by a priest, because he was one of the literate people then, he realized that people are being taken for fools. They've been taken for a ride by the Roman Catholic Church. And he was like, nah, I'm not going to stand by and watch this corruption being allowed to happen. People being exploited by the church, being asked to pay and buy indulgences and do all sorts of crazy stuff in the name of going to heaven, And then with the press being rolled out, people were able to read the Bible for themselves and realize that, hey, this is actually crazy. And that's how the Protestant movement started. And, today you have thousands and thousands of denominations and people are all trying to figure it out for themselves. And in fact, that's probably the best thing that could ever have happened to Christianity, because now people are starting to think for themselves, And so this is another thing, if you worship a God who is going to smite you and send you to hell for questioning him, then what do you think? You see, and this is probably the most fundamentally problematic worldview that we can have based on people's beliefs about their creator. God gave you a brain. The creator gave you a brain. Why would that same creator tell you to stop using your brain when it comes to me? Use it for everything else. Be logical everywhere else. Be measured and temperate and think things through everywhere else. But when it comes to me, just believe what that priest tells you about me. Don't ask questions. Just have faith. And this is how these institutions filter out thinkers. They filter out people who think and who are not afraid of the truth and who are more afraid of losing themselves to some cult than they are of being ostracized by that cult. They filter you out by telling you that if you have questions, if you have doubts about what you're being told from that pulpit, then you don't have faith. You don't have faith and you're going to hell. They make you afraid. They make you afraid of asking questions, and that is so disempowering. And this is also what happens then, isn't it, in our society, in our world, where people do evil stuff and they say, I was just following orders. I was just doing what I was told. We are reaching a point in human history now where the creator is no longer going to take that as an excuse. It may have been an excuse during the time of the Roman Catholic Church where people weren't allowed to read the Bible. And if they did read it for themselves, they were going to get burnt at the stake as a heretic. But today, almost all of us have access to the internet. Almost all of us have access to information. And there's a lot of information that tells you that what you have been told about God is erroneous, and that your religious institution is keeping information from you that could be empowering you in teaching you that you and your creator are completely connected all the time. You don't need to go to someone else or an institution or a building to connect to your creator. If that helps you in your journey, that's cool for you, sovereignly, based on your free will as a human being, as a creation. But if in your heart you know that you have an ability to connect to your creator without anything externally that you are not resonating with, you have a right, because he's your creator. He, she, it, they are your creator. They know you. They've given you free will. So what does it mean if we have a culture of denying people's free will in the name of the creator? Please let me know what you think. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.